She was moments away from saying "I do," when the truth about her groom shattered everything. What she did next left the entire wedding in absolute shock, and changed their lives forever. Stay with me. This is not just a story about betrayal, but about redemption, love, and the power of second chances. Before we begin this powerful story, make sure to subscribe and click the bell icon so you never miss our life-changing content. If you find value in these stories, like the video and share it with others. This channel is more than just entertainment. Every story is crafted with a deep message, a meaningful moral lesson designed to inspire, uplift, and transform. A minute before the wedding, she found out the shocking truth about her groom.
Her revenge shocked everyone.
I remember the scent of roses.
Thousands of them.
White petals trembling in the breeze. Each one handpicked for our day. I stood in front of the mirror.
Tuxedo sharp. Tie perfect.
My heart a battlefield of nerves and excitement. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. The day I married Ava. She was the only woman who ever saw me. Not the billionaire. Not the brand. But the broken boy behind the empire. We met 6 years ago. I was living out of my car. Showering at gas stations. Pitching startup ideas to strangers in cafes.
Ava was a waitress then. Bright eyes. Gentle smile.
But it was her silence that saved me.
She listened. Really listened.
When I had nothing.
No money. No connections. No hope.
She believed in my madness. When I did not believe in myself.
She stayed up nights.
Helping me fix broken code. Translating investor documents.
Holding my hand.
When I broke down after rejections.
I remember once.
We had $2 between us.
She bought me coffee.
And told me I was born to change the world. She made me believe it.
So I did.
One deal led to another.
An app. A buyout. A name.
Suddenly, I was someone.
We moved into a penthouse.
We dined with executives. She still wore the same earrings. The ones I gave her. When all I could afford was silver-plated tin.
But success has a price.
I started traveling more.
Meetings. Conferences. Photo ops.
People called me visionary. They had no idea I was losing the woman who made me one. And then came the mistake.
A betrayal so quiet.
It took me months to admit it even happened.
I never told Ava. I buried it.
Assumed it would disappear.
But truth does not rot. It breathes.
And on the day of our wedding,
it bled.
I did not know how she found out. But I saw it in her eyes. The moment she walked into the bridal suite. She did not cry.
She did not scream.
She simply looked at me. As if I was a stranger wearing her lover's face.
And then she whispered, "I know." My knees gave in. My throat closed. But before I could speak,
she handed me a letter. "Read it after the ceremony," she said. "I will not ruin this day for the people who love us." Then she walked down the aisle.
With grace. I did not deserve.
Every guest saw beauty.
I saw heartbreak. Her smile was porcelain.
Too perfect to be real. As she stood beside me, vows on her lips, my palms were shaking.
But then,
right before the officiant asked the question,
she turned, not toward me, but toward the crowd.
She reached into her bouquet, pulled out a small microphone,
and said,
"There is something you all need to know about the man I am about to marry." Gasps filled the air.
My lungs froze. Her voice did not tremble. It was steady, powerful.
She told them everything.
About the woman, the lie, the silence, the cowardice. And then she looked at me, not with hate, but with something worse. Pity. I loved you, she said. I still do.
But love without truth is just decoration. She handed me the ring, turned to the guests,
and said,
"There will be no wedding today."
But she did not walk out.
She walked toward the girl,
the woman I betrayed her with,
the same one who had come to the wedding, standing quietly near the back, eyes red with shame.
Ava reached out, held her hand, and said,
"I forgive you, but do not let any man silence your worth again."
That was Ava.
Even in betrayal,
she chose dignity. She chose truth. I stood there, heart split open,
as every guest stared,
not at me,
but at the woman who turned betrayal into grace.
And then she walked out, alone. I never saw her again,
not for a year,
until one afternoon.
I saw her on the cover of a magazine. Founder of the Worth Project, Ava Monroe, helping women rebuild after betrayal, helping them find their voice again. She had taken her pain
and turned it into purpose. And me, I had everything except her. But fate is strange,
because exactly 2 years later, she walked into my office, not as my ex,
but as the consultant I hired
to help save my failing company.
She looked stronger, wiser,
more radiant than ever.
And as she sat across from me, she said,
"Let us talk about redemption." She said it with calm fire in her eyes,
a quiet strength in her voice.
That made me feel like a boy again.
I could not speak. Not immediately.
My chest felt heavy, as if every heartbeat carried the weight of all my past mistakes.
Redemption. It was not a word.
It was a mirror, one I had avoided for far too long.
Ava opened her laptop. She was all business, professional, poised. But I saw the flicker,
a momentary shift in her expression. When our eyes met, a ghost of the woman who once fell asleep beside me, dreaming of forever. I cleared my throat, tried to find the man she once believed in. He was somewhere buried beneath the pride,
the power,
the press releases.
"This company," she began,
"is bleeding integrity."
She was right.
Since the scandal leaked, investors were pulling out. Public trust was collapsing. My leadership questioned in every headline.
But she did not come to shame me.
She came to rebuild what I had broken.
Not for me,
but for the hundreds of employees whose futures depended on our survival.
"Here is the plan," she said,
sliding a document across the table. Full transparency, operational reform, corporate responsibility, and a narrative that is not about you, but about the people who trusted you.
I swallowed hard.
This was not the woman who once whispered poetry at midnight.
This was a force.
A lighthouse in the storm I created. "Why did you agree to this?"
I asked.
"I am the last man you should want to help."
She paused,
looked at me with eyes that had seen fire and come out stronger. "Because I know what it means to lose everything," she said. "And because forgiveness is not a gift.
It is a decision.
To stop bleeding from the same wound." I could not breathe for a moment.
She stood,
gathered her files,
and added,
"I am not here for you. I am here for the people watching you.
You fell. But what you do next,
that is your story now." Then she walked out of the room,
just like before. But this time, she left a door open. And I,
for the first time in years, chose to walk through it. The next few weeks were grueling.
Meetings, reforms, public apologies, uncomfortable truths. And Ava, she was everywhere, guiding, correcting, leading.
She did not let me hide behind my title.
She stripped it all down,
until only the man remained.
and slowly, something changed,
Not just in the company.
but in me.
I began showing up.
Not for the camera, not for the board, but for the people, the janitor, the interns,
The single mother in accounting.
I began to listen, really listen,
Just as she once did for me.
in that dusty cafe.
When I had nothing.
One night,
After a long day of rebuilding, I found her alone in the rooftop garden. The same place I had once promised her a future. Back when the stars felt closer. She was looking out at the city. The wind playing with her hair. Her silhouette lit by soft lights.
and quiet ache.
I stepped beside her.
She did not move.
But she did not walk away either.
I miss you, I said. Not as a plea, not as a trick, just truth. She nodded slowly, and whispered,
I miss who you used to be.
I closed my eyes, and told her,
I am trying to become him again. Not for you, but because I cannot bear to be the man who lost you twice.
the silence between us.
Was heavier than any storm.
And then, she turned to me. There were tears, but not of pain, of release.
She placed her hand over mine.
Not to hold, but to remind.
I see the man trying, she said. But redemption is not about words. It is about who you choose to be, when no one is watching.
That night,
For the first time in years.
I slept with peace.
Not because I had won her back, but because I had started winning myself back.
What came next?
Neither of us could have expected. Because just as our hearts began to soften, the past decided it was not finished with me yet. It came in the form of a letter, hand-delivered,
No return address. Just my name.
written in the same trembling handwriting that once signed away rights to everything I thought I buried. I opened it alone. In the dim light of my study, my hands were steady, but my soul trembled. Inside was a single page, yellowed at the edges,
Words etched in pain. Each sentence.
a ghost I had locked behind ambition. You owe me more than silence.
Beneath it, a photo. A little girl. 5, maybe 6.
Hair the color of Ava's, eyes that mirrored mine. So perfectly, I felt my heartbeat stagger.
I stood frozen.
The walls of my empire suddenly felt like a prison. How had I missed this? How had I allowed my past
To bloom into a secret life.
that now stared at me with innocent eyes? Through a photograph,
A child. My child.
born from the betrayal, raised without my name.
A consequence.
I never had the courage to face. I dropped into the leather chair behind me, my breath caught between shame and disbelief.
Ava.
How could I ever tell her this? After everything. After she taught me how to own my failure, how to rebuild from ashes. This could burn everything down again.
And yet, hiding it.
Would turn me back into the man I vowed never to be again. I found her the next morning.
In the conference room. Glass walls.
Sunlight spilling over spreadsheets and strategy boards. She was leading a presentation to 20 tired, hopeful souls, all hanging on her every word.
She was brilliance. Wrapped in grace. Powerful. Precise. And I
was a man holding a truth that could fracture the light she had finally stepped into.
I waited.
Until the room cleared. Until her eyes met mine. With that same calm storm. "I need to talk to you," I said.
She studied my face. Saw something there.
Even I did not fully understand.
We walked to the rooftop.
The city below us. Buzzing with a world that would never know. The weight of the moment we were about to share. I handed her the photo.
She stared at it.
Without blinking. Without breathing. When she finally looked up, there was no rage.
No collapse.
Only sadness.
And something worse. Disappointment.
"She deserves more," Ava said quietly. "And so do you. But you have to choose.
Do you hide again?
Or do you become the man that child can be proud of?"
I looked at her. And saw. Not judgment. But a mirror.
A reflection of everything I was. Everything I failed to be. And everything I still could become.
I nodded.
"I want to meet her." Ava turned back toward the skyline.
And whispered.
"Then you start by earning the right to."
That night, I stared at the stars.
And for the first time,
I prayed. Not for success.
Not for forgiveness. But for the courage.
To walk into the fire. Of my own past. And come out.
Worthy of being called Father. The next morning, I stood outside a modest brick house. In a quiet neighborhood. Far from the luxury towers I once called home. There were wind chimes on the porch. Faded pink. A child's bicycle leaned against the railing. Its training wheels still attached.
My heart pounded. Not from fear.
But from the weight of what I was about to face. The door opened slowly. She appeared.
The woman from my past.
The one whose silence had haunted my success more than I ever dared to admit.
Her name was Elise. She looked older.
Not tired. Just weathered. Like a woman who had carried something heavy
for far too long. She stepped onto the porch,
blocking the doorway, as if to protect what waited behind her.
"You got the letter," she said.
It was not a question.
I nodded. I did. There was a pause.
Thick with history. And everything we never said.
"Elise," I whispered. "My daughter." "She is not ready," she cut in. Her voice was soft, but firm.
"She knows nothing about you.
Not even your name."
I never told her. Because I did not know if you deserved to be part of her life.
Her words sliced clean.
And I took them without defense.
"You are right," I said.
I did not deserve her. But I want to now.
She searched my face. Every line. Every flicker.
Looking for the man I used to be. Or maybe the one I was finally becoming.
"Elena is 6, she said.
She loves building things. Wooden blocks, Legos, puzzles. She says she wants to be an engineer like the lady on TV. That lady," Elise added with a faint smile,
"is Ava." My chest tightened.
This was no coincidence.
This was life.
Bringing everything full circle. "She can meet you," Elise said finally.
But not as her father. Not yet. As a friend. Slowly. On her terms. I nodded.
Tears blurring the edges of the world. "I will do whatever it takes."
She stepped aside. Opened the door. Called softly.
"Elena, someone is here to see your inventions."
And then I saw her. Tiny feet.
Bounding down the hallway. Hair in 2 messy pigtails.
Eyes full of light. And wonder. She stopped in the doorway. Looked up at me. And smiled. "Hi," she said.
"I made a rocket ship out of spoons." Do you want to see it? My voice broke as I answered, I would love nothing more.
She grabbed my hand, pulled me inside. No hesitation, no history,
just the purity of a child
who saw no mistakes, only potential.
And as she led me through a world of cardboard planets and glitter-covered dreams,
I felt something shift. A new beginning. Not clean, not perfect, but real.
Later that night, I sat across from Ava again, told her everything, not as a confession, but as an offering. She listened in silence, then said, Now you understand. That success is not what you build. It is what you repair.
And then,
with eyes that still held pieces of the woman I once loved,
she added,
I will help you, but not for your sake.
For hers.
She deserves a father who does not just show up,
but stays. I promised I would.
But promises are not enough. Because just as things began to settle, just as healing seemed within reach,
the past surfaced again. But this time, it came for Ava.
It started with a headline, buried on page 6 of a tech blog. Nonprofit leaders' past raises questions about conflict of interest.
I read it twice. My stomach churned. Then I read it again.
They were digging into her history,
twisting facts,
pulling fragments from old tax filings, out-of-context emails, and whispers from jealous rivals, who never stood a chance in her light. They were coming for her integrity.
And the worst part,
it was tied to me. They claimed her involvement in rebuilding my company
was a payoff, a backdoor redemption deal.
In exchange for wiping my record clean, they accused her of laundering my reputation
through her nonprofit,
of using the Worth Project to polish the image of a disgraced billionaire. I slammed my laptop shut.
The air felt thin.
I had been clawing my way back to humanity,
one painful truth at a time. And now,
the only woman who ever saved me
was paying the price
for standing beside me again.
I called her. No answer.
I drove straight to her apartment. When she opened the door,
her eyes were calm,
but her hands were shaking. I told you, she said. This world never forgets. It only waits for you to forget your place.
I stepped inside.
The walls were covered with sketches and project notes, drawings from young girls she had mentored across the country. This was not just a scandal. This was a war against everything she had built. From the rubble I left behind. I will go public, I said. Take full responsibility. Clear your name. She shook her head. That will only feed the fire. They do not care about truth. They care about blood. I clenched my fists, paced the room. I will not let them destroy you. She looked up, softly, strongly. Then do not defend me. Stand with me. Not behind. Not ahead. With. We spent the night crafting a response. Not a press release. A declaration. A video. No suits. No filters. Just the two of us. In a room. Telling the world the truth. About the pain. The failure. The choices. The lessons. And how redemption is never given. It is earned. Daily. With sweat. And scars. The video went viral within hours. Not because it was perfect, but because it was human. People saw her heart. They heard her conviction. And they witnessed something rare. A woman who refused to let someone else's shadow define her light. But not everyone was moved. The board of her nonprofit
called an emergency meeting. Sponsors pulled out. Donors hesitated. And suddenly, her entire life's work hung by a thread. The next day, she stood before the board, alone.
And I watched from the back of the room. Every word she spoke was a testament to who she had always been. I never asked for perfection, she said,
from myself, or from anyone I helped.
But I always demanded honesty. If that disqualifies me, then I will walk away with nothing but my name,
and I will still sleep in peace. The room fell silent. Then slowly,
a woman at the end of the table stood. One of the original board members. Gray-haired, eyes brimming with something ancient.
Respect.
I watched you build this place from the ground up, she said. And if this board chooses to abandon you today, then we will not just lose a founder. We will lose our soul.
One by one, others followed.
The vote was unanimous.
Ava stayed.
But something inside her
had shifted. Later,
back in her apartment, she stood by the window,
arms crossed,
watching the city breathe beneath the stars. You could have stayed quiet, she said. You could have let me take the fall. I stepped beside her,
gently, gratefully.
I owed you everything.
And for once,
I wanted to pay something back.
She looked at me then, really looked, and in her eyes,
I saw not forgiveness,
but something deeper, rebuilding.
But just as I thought we had faced the worst, just as I believed the past had spent all its shadows, there was a knock at the door.
3 sharp taps. Urgent. Unfamiliar. She opened it. And standing there was a teenage girl. Tall. Silent.
Eyes wide with recognition.
Are you Ava Monroe? She asked.
Her voice barely a whisper.
Ava nodded. Yes.
The girl held up a worn journal. This belonged to my mother.
Before she died,
she said if anything happened to her, I had to find you.
I stepped forward,
but Ava's hand reached back, stopping me gently. Her face had gone pale. Her fingers trembled, because she recognized the name on the journal's cover. It was her sister's, the one she had not seen in 17 years. Ava staggered back 2 steps.
Her lips parted,
but no words came out. She reached for the journal with both hands, like it might vanish if she touched it too fast. The girl held it out, eyes brimming,
her jaw clenched,
trying so hard to be strong, to not break in front of strangers. But I saw it, the tremble in her shoulders, the pain in her silence. Ava opened the cover. Inside, scrawled in faded blue ink, was a single message. If life ever breaks you,
find Ava.
She knows how to heal broken things. She pressed the journal to her chest.
Her breath shuddered.
And for the first time since I had met her,
Ava wept.
Not a single tear,
but a storm. Quiet, unstoppable. She dropped to her knees,
arms wrapped around the girl, and whispered through her sobs, "You look just like her."
The girl nodded.
I was 9 when she passed. I knelt beside them,
but I knew
this was not my moment.
This was a door
to a past Ava had sealed, long before she ever met me.
A sister lost to addiction,
to choices Ava could never forgive herself for.
She had told me once, long ago,
that some wounds never ask to be healed. They just learn to hide deeper. But now, that wound had a name, and it had just knocked on her door. Later that night,
Ava sat on the floor,
with the journal open beside her, pages fluttering with memories
and grief. The girl, her niece, was asleep on the couch,
wrapped in one of Ava's old college sweatshirts.
She tried to call me once, Ava said, her voice hollow.
I ignored it. I thought I was doing the right thing.
Protecting myself.
Building a life without the chaos. She looked up at me, eyes red, but filled with something I had not seen before.
Resolve.
But healing is not about forgetting. It is about choosing to love, even when the past still stings.
She turned to the couch.
Watched the girl sleep. She has no one else. And neither do I. And I understood in that moment. Our story was no longer about redemption. It was about legacy. Not the kind measured in wealth
or headlines, but in how we love.
When life asks us to hold more than we think we can bear. Over the next few weeks,
our lives changed. Again. The company stabilized. My daughter, Elena, and Ava's niece, Lila, became inseparable.
We started meeting at parks, museums, rooftop dinners under string lights.
4 people.
Piecing together something new, something fragile, something beautiful. There were no labels, no declarations, just small, sacred moments. Ava reading bedtime stories. Me fixing a science project at midnight. Lila painting her mother's face from memory. Elena whispering that she finally had a sister. One night, as Ava and I stood in the kitchen, washing dishes in silence, she said, "I am scared."
Of what? I asked. She paused,
wiped her hands on a towel.
Of hoping again. Of building something that might fall apart. Of letting love in. After spending years teaching myself to survive without it. I reached out, held her hand. Firm. Honest. I do not know what tomorrow holds. But I will not run this time. Not from pain. Not from love. Not from us. She looked at me. Truly looked. And this time, she did not pull away. But just as we began to breathe, to settle, to believe that maybe, just maybe, the past had finally run out of storms. The doorbell rang. Ava opened it slowly. Standing there was a man in a crisp gray suit. Sharp eyes. Thin smile. He held out a sealed envelope. "For Ava Monroe and Asher Reed," he said. "You have been named in a will. And it changes everything." The envelope felt heavier than it should have. Ava turned it in her hands, looking at the seal. Elegant, gold-stamped, marked with the initials MR. It was from her sister, Maya. The man in the gray suit nodded. She prepared this before her passing. She instructed that it be delivered only when her daughter found Ava. We sat in silence. As Ava slowly opened it, the letter inside was handwritten. Pages creased. Edges worn with time. Every word felt like Maya was still speaking, through the ink and paper, to the sister she had lost. "Ava, if you are reading this, then somehow, life has led Lila back to you. I failed in many ways. But the one thing I never stopped believing was that you could love her, the way I never learned to love myself. She is smart. She is kind. She is everything I wished I had been, before the world swallowed me whole. I know I hurt you. I know I disappeared when you needed a sister the most. But I never stopped following your life. I saw you build a movement. I saw you forgive a man who broke you. I saw you rise again and again. And it gave me hope that one day, my daughter could know a love that strong. I leave you everything. Not just my savings or assets,
but my greatest treasure.
Lila.
Raise her with the strength I borrowed from you. And if Asher is still in your life, let him show her what it means
For a man to stay.
You two were always unfinished. Maybe this is your second chance. Or maybe this is simply your forever beginning.
By the end.
Ava was in tears again. But they were not from pain this time.
They were from release. From forgiveness. From understanding.
She folded the letter gently, placed it back into the envelope,
and looked at me. She wanted you to stay, she said. Softly. Firmly. And I did. 1 year later.
Our lives did not turn into a fairy tale. They turned into something real. Mornings began with burnt toast
and mismatched socks.
Evenings were filled with homework battles
and dance recitals, board meetings, soccer games,
silent car rides with teenage attitude, and sleepy confessions of love from a 6-year-old who now calls me Dad.
We did not chase perfection. We built a home, one scar at a time, one choice at a time, together.
Ava expanded the Worth Project to include programs for young women raised by single fathers. Lila became the face of one such campaign.
Her mother's eyes, her aunt's fire, and me? I stopped chasing headlines,
started writing bedtime stories, started walking to school drop-offs instead of red carpets, started showing up, not just in presence,
but in purpose.
Moral of the story:
in life,
you may break promises, you may lose your way, you may even hurt the ones who held your heart the closest, but redemption is real, not in grand gestures, but in consistent love, in doing the hard thing
again and again,
until it becomes who you are. True success is not measured by what you build with your hands, but by what you rebuild with your heart. Forgiveness does not erase the past. It transforms it into something meaningful,
something powerful,
something that breathes life into the next generation. Because the greatest legacy you will ever leave
is not your wealth, but your wisdom,
not your status, but your story.
So if you have hurt someone, apologize. If you have fallen, rise.
If you have loved and lost,
love again. Because sometimes
the most beautiful stories
begin at rock bottom and end with grace.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to this heartfelt story. If it touched your soul, please share it, leave a comment below, and remind someone today: you are never alone.